Welcome back to Conversations That Awaken by Joe Bandra. If you've been with us since episode 1, thank you for taking this journey with us. Over the first 10 episodes, we've questioned many of the assumptions most of us inherited without ever examining them. We've explored the nature of reality, the illusion of separation, the origins of belief, the question of God, the self-organizing universe, the fact of being, the limits of language, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. You may have noticed that we've returned to some of the same ideas more than once. That wasn't by accident. Some truths cannot be understood by hearing them only once. They must be approached from different angles, examined through different lenses, and reflected upon until they become your own direct insight. Repetition is not about convincing you, it is about inviting you to observe more deeply. Our purpose has never been to give you another belief system. It has always been to encourage you to examine, question, investigate, and ultimately understand for yourself. Because borrowed knowledge is information. Direct experience, on the other hand, is transformation. If you're joining us for the first time, we encourage you to begin with episode 1. Each conversation builds upon the previous one, forming a journey from questioning the world to questioning the one who believes they are separate from it. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for listening. Take a moment to become fully present. Set aside, just for a little while, everything you think you know. And together, let's question everything. I am Kim. I hope you had the opportunity to read or listen to Finding Neve by Joe Bandra. The name Neve, heaven spelled backward, symbolizes a journey of self-discovery, an inward return to the source of true happiness. It is an invitation to look beyond the stories we tell ourselves, rediscover our authentic nature, and awaken to the peace and wholeness that have always been within us.
So picture this. You're sitting in a massive, just pitch black movie theater.
Okay.
And the screen in front of you is gigantic. Like it's wrapping around your entire field of vision. And the movie that's playing is just completely immersive.
Oh, yeah.
You've got deafening explosions, high-speed car chases, this sweeping, emotionally manipulative soundtrack that's literally making your chest ache.
Right, right.
And you are just utterly gripped by the plot.
Yeah, your heart rate is elevated, your palms are sweating. You've basically completely lost the plot of reality.
Exactly.
You have entirely forgotten that you are, a human being sitting in a slightly sticky chair eating stale popcorn because the movie has just hijacked your entire sensorium.
Right. In that moment, you are the movie.
Yeah.
Every emotional beat, you're right there with it.
Yeah.
Reacting as if it were a matter of literal life and death.
Mm-hmm.
But then right at the climax of the film, the projector breaks. The bulb just snaps. The sound cuts out instantly. The explosions vanish. The music is gone. And suddenly, you were just staring at this massive blank white screen.
It's an incredibly jarring feeling when that happens.
Oh, totally.
Because that illusion of total immersion just drops in a millisecond. But, in that same millisecond, there's this profound realization, which is that the screen was there the entire time.
Right. It had to be.
It had to be. Without that blank, silent surface, the chaotic, loud movie couldn't exist in the first place. But because the movie was so loud and so bright, you never once noticed the thing that was actually holding it.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive into the source material today.
Yeah.
Joe Bandra recently broke down this really profound piece of commentary in response to a video by Deepak Chopra from back in August 2026.
Yeah, and they both just completely circle around this exact realization.
Yeah. Because we spend our entire lives obsessing over the movie, right?
Yeah.
Our jobs, our fears, our personal histories, our anxieties about tomorrow, and we just completely ignore the screen. So today, the mission of this deep dive is to figure out how to finally see the screen.
Yeah.
We're going to look at what human awareness actually is, why we constantly misidentify with it, and how understanding the mechanics of our own consciousness can just completely restructure how we experience reality. And we're doing this through 6 distinct lenses so we don't get bogged down in too much jargon.
I love that. And to do that, Bandra and Chopra established this brilliant foundational framework right off the bat.
Okay, let's unpack that.
They basically break the entirety of human experience into three fundamental categories. And honestly, if we don't grasp these three buckets, the rest of the conversation just kind of collapses.
Right.
So we have to define the known, the unknown, and a very specific third category they call the unknowable, or simply knowing.
Okay, let's start with the most obvious one, right? The known. I'm assuming, going back to our analogy, this is the movie that's currently playing.
Exactly.
It's the stuff I can point to, measure, or pull up from my memory banks. So my physical body, the car I drive, the thoughts bouncing around in my head right now.
Yeah.
Even my anger about being stuck in traffic this morning, my belief systems, my past traumas, my achievements. All of that.
That is the perfect summary. It's literally the entire catalog of your life's contents. If you can observe it, measure it, or recall it, it is part of the known.
Okay.
And it includes the external world, obviously, but crucially, it includes your internal psychological world, too.
Like your personality.
Yeah, your very idea of who you are, your personality, your neuroses, your quirks, all of that falls into the category of the known because it can be observed by you.
Right, which naturally leads us to the second bucket, the unknown. So if the known is the movie currently playing, the unknown is, I guess, the sequel that hasn't been filmed yet.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, we don't know the plot, we don't know who's going to be cast, but eventually it will be released, we'll buy a ticket, and it will transition into becoming part of the known.
Right. The unknown is just the known waiting to happen.
Okay.
Tomorrow is unknown. The cure for certain diseases is unknown. Or the precise mechanics of how the universe was formed or what's in the deepest part of the ocean.
Right. We just don't have the data yet.
Exactly. They are unknown, but they are discoverable. With enough time, better technology, or just literally waiting for tomorrow to arrive, the unknown gets converted into the known.
Okay, so that brings us to the third category. And this is where Chopra and Bandra introduce the real paradigm shift.
Yeah, the unknowable.
The unknowable. And just to be super clear for everyone listening, they aren't using this word to describe a really, really difficult puzzle that we just don't have the math for yet.
Right.
They aren't talking about like dark matter or string theory.
No, and that distinction is the hinge for this entire concept.
Yeah.
The unknowable, or knowing, as Bandra prefers to call it, is not a missing fact waiting to be discovered.
Okay.
It cannot become an object of knowledge because it is the very thing through which every object is known.
Whoa, okay.
It is awareness itself. Chopra refers to it as the unknowable that knows the known and the unknown.
Oh, wow. So to bring it back to the theater, it is the blank screen.
Exactly.
Because the screen is never going to be a character in the movie. It's never going to have a dialogue line or a plot arc. You can't point to a part of the movie and say, there is the screen.
No, you can't.
Because the screen is the invisible foundation allowing the movie to happen at all.
Right, right.
So both the movie playing right now, the known, and the sequel coming out next year, the unknown, they can only exist because that blank screen is present to receive them.
That's spot on. Knowledge is something you acquire and you hold on to, but knowing is the space in which that acquisition happens.
Okay, so that fundamentally shifts how we have to investigate this, doesn't it?
Totally.
Like, let's jump into the first lens here, the philosophy lens.
Yeah.
Because if the unknowable is the screen itself, we run into a massive structural problem when we try to study it.
Oh, a huge problem. Because historically, when human beings want to understand something, what do? We turn it into an object.
Right, we put it under a microscope.
Yeah, or we philosophize about its properties. But how do you examine something that is, by definition, the examiner?
Oh, this is the observer trap.
Exactly.
If I try to look at my own awareness, I am immediately splitting myself in two. I'm creating a subject, me looking at an object, my awareness.
Right.
But if I can observe it, then I am not it. Like, if I could look at a thought, I can't fundamentally be that thought because there has to be a distance between the seer and the seen.
And this is a puzzle that has haunted philosophy for literally centuries.
I bet.
We know our bodies through physical sensations. We know the external world through sight and sound. We know our internal world by observing our thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
But whatever can be observed cannot completely define the observer. And if you follow that logic, the human mind, which is just this relentless meaning-making machine...
Oh, it never stops.
Never stops. It tries to build a model of this ultimate observer. And Bandra points out that this is where we fall into the trap of the homunculus.
Okay, the homunculus.
Yeah.
The little man in the head.
Yes.
Where we imagine there's like a tiny separate version of ourselves sitting behind our eyes, wearing a headset, pulling levers, and just watching the screens of our retinas.
Like a little pilot. And philosophically, that completely falls apart.
Why?
Because if there is a little person in your brain doing the observing, well, who is in their head observing them?
Oh, right. Is there an even smaller person?
Exactly. It triggers an infinite regress. It just creates another object that needs to be observed.
Yeah.
So the real philosophical inquiry isn't about finding a tiny pilot. It's asking, what is the fundamental condition that makes any experience possible in the first place?
But wait, I have to push back on this entirely.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the whole point of Bandra and Chopra's commentary is that you cannot turn awareness into an object of thought,
Yeah.
aren't we doing exactly that right now? Like by doing an entire deep dive on the nature of consciousness, using all these words and philosophical frameworks, aren't we just generating more of the known?
That is a very fair point.
Like, aren't we trapping ourselves in an intellectual maze by trying to verbalize something you just said is fundamentally unverbalizable?
That is the ultimate paradox. And Bandra actually addresses this limitation directly.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. Thought is a spectacular tool for navigating the known. But when thought tries to grasp the unknowable, it reaches its absolute limit.
Okay.
Thought can describe awareness, it can build models of it, but every single description you generate is just another object appearing within awareness. The map is not the territory.
It's like how the word water doesn't actually make you any less thirsty.
Yes, exactly that.
Like I can read a textbook on the chemical composition of H2O, the exact molecular bonding, the history of the world's oceans. I could have total intellectual mastery over the concept of water.
Right.
But if I am dying of dehydration in a desert, that knowledge is entirely useless. I need the direct, lived experience of the liquid.
Exactly. And the word fire won't keep you warm in a blizzard. The word awareness, or any philosophical theory we discuss today, is not the living reality of awareness. It is just a pointer.
A pointer.
Yeah. And this realization actually demands an extreme level of intellectual humility.
Really? Why humility?
Because true philosophical wisdom, in this context, isn't about arriving at a brilliant, bulletproof thesis that finally solves consciousness.
Okay.
It's reaching the edge of thought, recognizing that all our vast knowledge appears within a mystery that the intellect simply cannot contain, and then having the humility to just stop thinking.
Wow. Okay, so if we can't think our way to the screen, what happens when we forget the screen exists entirely? Which brings us to our second lens, psychology.
Let's do it.
Because that seems to be the default human condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't walk around contemplating the unknowable. We walk around completely consumed by the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
We build our entire sense of identity out of the known.
And that brings us to the psychological mechanics of suffering.
The stuff.
Yeah, because from the moment we are born, we begin accumulating data. We gather experiences, traumatic events, parental expectations, societal labels, successes, failures.
Basically everything that happens to us.
Right. And psychologically speaking, the brain stitches all of this historical data together into a cohesive narrative. We construct a psychological self out of the known.
We literally build an avatar.
Yes, an avatar.
And then we defend that avatar as if our biological survival depends on it. We walk around saying, I am a successful executive,
Yeah.
or I am a failure, or I am an anxious person.
Right.
We take all these passing objects like a temporary emotion or a memory of something that happened 20 years ago, and we just glue them together and call it me.
The problem with building your identity out of the known, though, is that the known is inherently unstable.
Because it's always changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It changes. But the ego, this constructed avatar, is completely obsessed with continuity.
It wants to survive.
It needs its story to survive to the next chapter. The brain is essentially a prediction engine. It wants certainty, it wants to control the variables, and it wants psychological security.
Which perfectly explains why the unknown is so utterly terrifying to the human ego.
Oh, it's horrifying to the ego.
If my brain's primary job is predictive coding, like trying to anticipate what happens next so I don't die, then the unknown future, the prospect of losing my job, the reality of aging, or the ultimate unknown of death, it registers as a massive systemic threat. The ego looks at the unknown and just panics because it cannot calculate the variables.
And that panic is what we experience as daily suffering.
Right.
When life inevitably refuses to follow the ego's script, the nervous system flares up. But this is where understanding the knowing creates a profound psychological shift.
That's so.
Well, what actually happens to our neurology when we recognize that fear itself is just another known object?
Okay, I've heard a lot of people use the analogy of being trapped in a violent thunderstorm versus sitting inside a secure house looking out the window at that same storm.
Yeah, that's a common one.
But I actually think that analogy is fundamentally flawed here.
Really? Why?
Because hiding in a house implies detachment. It implies you are separating yourself from the reality of the human experience and hiding behind this safe glass wall.
I see what you mean.
But from what Chopra and Bandra are pointing to, recognizing awareness isn't about hiding, it's about realizing you aren't the person getting battered by the storm.
Right.
You are the sky in which the storm is happening.
Oh, that is a much more accurate framework.
Because the sky doesn't hide from the hurricane. It holds the hurricane perfectly.
Yes, it contains the lightning and the torrential rain, but the sky itself is never wet, and it is never damaged by the wind.
Okay, so mechanically, how does that shift happen? Like if I'm having a panic attack, if my ego is terrified of the unknown, how does being the sky actually change anything in my body?
Well, it changes the relationship between the observer and the observed, which literally alters your nervous system's response.
Okay, walk me through that.
So when a threat arises, the amygdala fires, right? The body tightens, the mind starts racing. Now, if you believe you are the constructed self, you say, I am terrified. I am under attack.
You completely fuse with the emotion.
Exactly. You fuse with it. But if you access that underlying knowing, you notice the sensation rising. You observe the tightening in your chest. You observe the catastrophic thought.
Yeah.
You move the fear from being the subject, the I, to being an object of that.
You realize, fear is appearing in the movie right now. I am the screen, and the screen is currently displaying a scene of intense anxiety.
Exactly. And the moment you observe the fear as an object, you are no longer completely identified with it. The amygdala hijack gets interrupted.
The prefrontal cortex comes back online.
Yes, you don't suppress the emotion. The fear is still absolutely allowed to exist. The storm is still happening in the sky, but it no longer possesses you.
Okay, but I want to tread very carefully here.
Right.
Because when we start talking about identifying as the sky rather than the person in the storm, it can sound incredibly dismissive of severe human trauma.
That's a very valid concern.
Like if someone has endured horrific abuse or suffers from severe PTSD, telling them, oh, your trauma is just an object appearing on a screen, that sounds not only unhelpful, but potentially harmful. It sounds like a spiritual bypass.
And Bandra makes a very explicit point to clarify this exact thing.
Good.
Recognizing the unknowable does not replace professional therapy. It does not erase the biological reality of trauma stored in the nervous system.
Right, the body keeps the score.
Exactly. It does not mean you stop doing the hard psychological work of healing. What it does is provide a stable foundation from which to do that work.
Oh, so it changes the context of the healing.
Yes. Instead of trying to heal from the terrifying premise of I am fundamentally broken, you begin to recognize that the memory of the trauma and the physiological pain associated with it are appearing within a presence that was never itself traumatized. The trauma is real, the pain is valid, but it does not constitute the entirety of what you are. It gives you a place to stand that isn't constructed out of your own pain.
That is a massive distinction. Appearing within a presence that was never itself traumatized.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving to our third lens, science. If creating this psychological distance, shifting from the character to the screen, brings so much relief and literally regulates our nervous system, it makes me wonder, why hasn't science just mapped this? Like, we have fMRI machines. We can map neural pathways in real time. Why hasn't neuroscience just found this awareness under a microscope and solved the problem objectively?
Because science is humanity's ultimate tool for exploring the known and the unknown. And its triumphs in that arena are undeniable, right?
Absolutely.
We've mapped the human genome, we can look at galaxies billions of light years away, and when it comes to the brain, we can trace exactly which neural networks light up when you solve a math problem or feel angry.
Right.
The correlation between brain activity and conscious experience is incredibly intimate.
Yeah, I mean, we know that if you damage a specific part of the frontal lobe, a person's entire personality can change overnight.
Exactly.
Or we know that introducing anesthesia completely obliterates our reportable experience of being awake. So clearly the physical brain and this thing we call awareness are deeply, deeply entangled.
They are deeply entangled, but mapping the brain does not explain awareness itself. And Bandra uses this great conceptual model here.
Okay, what is it?
Think of all human knowledge as an island.
Okay.
As science progresses, our island of knowledge gets larger and larger. But as the island grows, the shoreline, which is the boundary where our knowledge meets the vast ocean of the unknown, that shoreline also gets longer.
So the more we know, the more we realize we don't know.
Exactly. Every time we answer one scientific question, it generates 3 new mysteries. And in neuroscience, the longest, most perplexing shoreline is what philosophers and scientists call the hard problem of consciousness.
Okay, but I look at the current state of neuroscience, and I see a lot of people claiming we are right on the verge of solving this.
Right, you hear that a lot.
Like, we can literally put someone in an fMRI, show them a terrifying image, and watch the blood flow increase in their amygdala. We can measure the electrical spikes. We have the data right there on the screen. Why doesn't that solve the hard problem? If we can see the fear happening biologically, haven't we found consciousness?
We have found the biological correlate of consciousness. We have found the mechanism that accompanies the experience. But that is not the experience itself.
Wait, explain the difference. What makes it the hard problem?
So science can perfectly describe the mechanics. It can explain how light hits the retina, gets converted into electrical signals, travels down the optic nerve, and is processed by the visual cortex.
Right.
That is what they call the easy problem, mapping the mechanics. But the hard problem is, why does that mechanical electrical process produce the subjective felt experience of the color red?
Oh, I see.
Why should the firing of neurons, which are basically just physical cells exchanging ions, why should that feel like anything at all?
Right. A brain scan can show exactly where pain is processing, but the computer monitor displaying the fMRI data does not feel the pain.
Precisely. A map of the brain is not the territory of subjective experience.
Yeah.
An equation describing the neurochemistry of love is not the visceral heartbreak or joy of actually loving someone. Science measures the objects in the movie, the neurochemistry, the electrical impulses, the blood flow.
But it can't measure the screen.
No, because the screen is the subjective presence that is actually looking at the science.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Right.
Humans have a long history of assuming things are unknowable magic, right up until science explains them. Right? Like, we used to think lightning was the wrath of angry gods, and now we know it's just electrostatic discharge.
Very true.
We thought disease was caused by bad air or demons, and then we discovered germs. Shouldn't we just trust that eventually, with enough computing power, science will figure out the exact physical mechanism of consciousness and move the unknowable safely into the known bucket?
Many materialist neuroscientists would absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
They believe it is just a matter of time and better technology. But Bandra and Chopra would argue that this is a fundamental category error. It's not just a gap in our current data, it's a difference in kind.
What do you mean by a category error?
It's like trying to find the concept of justice by dissecting a judge's brain.
Oh, wow.
You're just looking in the completely wrong domain. Objective measurement, by definition, strips away subjectivity to find universal physical laws.
Right.
But consciousness is subjectivity. You cannot use a tool designed to measure objects to capture the subject.
That makes total sense.
However, Bandra provides a very important impartial caution here, and this is crucial for anyone navigating this space.
What's the caution?
We must not turn these philosophical insights into established scientific facts.
Oh man, this happens constantly online. You see a lot of people using quantum physics to prove their spiritual beliefs.
Exactly. The internet is completely full of claims that quantum mechanics proves consciousness creates reality, or that awareness exists as a universal field independent of the brain.
Yeah.
The commentary cautions heavily against this. Those are metaphysical interpretations, not peer-reviewed scientific facts. Quantum physics and neuroscience show us that our experienced reality is heavily constructed, and they reveal the absolute limitations of our certainty. But honest inquiry requires a very specific balance.
Wonder without exaggeration and skepticism without arrogance.
Yes, perfectly said. We shouldn't dress up mysticism in a lab coat and claim it's hard science just to make it sound more legitimate. Science hits a wall at the hard problem because it is fundamentally confined to studying the known.
Okay, so if science hits a wall because its entire methodology relies on looking at objects, maybe our entire framework of looking is backwards.
Now we're getting into it.
Which brings us to lens number 4, metaphysics and mysticism. Because if we can't find consciousness inside the physical universe, we have to flip the entire equation inside out.
And metaphysics essentially asks, what is the fundamental nature of reality beneath all these appearances?
Right.
The default assumption of the modern world, the materialist view, is that the universe is made of dead matter. Billions of years go by. Matter randomly organizes into complex biological structures, and suddenly, a brain appears that generates a tiny spark of consciousness.
Yeah, the assumption is that consciousness is this small, fragile product existing inside an individual skull, which is just drifting through a massive, cold, dead universe. We think we're this tiny speck of awareness looking out at a giant physical reality.
Right, but think about the mechanics of your actual lived experience. Everything you know about this massive physical universe, the stars you see, the scientific instruments you read, the laws of physics you comprehend, every single bit of it appears as an experience within your consciousness.
Oh, right.
You have never, not once in your entire life, stepped outside of your awareness to examine reality from an external, objective position.
Because even if I somehow managed to step outside my body and look at the universe from a distance, I would still be aware of doing it.
Exactly.
The experience would still be happening within the field of my knowing.
Exactly. So the metaphysical flip that Chopra and Bandra are exploring is radical.
Yeah.
Perhaps awareness is not a biological byproduct generated inside the physical universe. Perhaps the experienced universe is occurring inside awareness.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that, because we need to be really clear about what this does not mean.
Good point.
This isn't the secret.
No.
This doesn't mean my individual personal ego is magically manufacturing planets or physically altering reality just by wishing for it.
No. It is absolutely not saying that your personal psychological self constructs matter. It means that what we call reality is absolutely inseparable from the field of awareness in which it becomes knowable.
Okay.
The divide between the subject, me, and the object, the world, may be a functional illusion created by the brain for survival, rather than a fundamental truth of the universe.
Okay, the classic analogy in spiritual circles is the ocean and the wave, but honestly, I've always found that a bit cliche and overly romantic.
Yeah, it gets overused.
It doesn't really explain the mechanics. I think a much better way to understand this metaphysical flip is to look at a smartphone screen.
Okay, I like where this is going.
If you zoom in on a screen, you see millions of individual pixels. A red pixel over here looks completely separate from a blue pixel over there.
Right.
They're displaying different colors, they have different coordinates, they're totally separate entities. But if you look at how the technology actually works, every single pixel is illuminated by the exact same electrical backlight.
Oh, that's good.
Without that single unified backlight, the individual pixels don't exist. They're just dead glass.
That is a phenomenal mechanical analogy.
Yeah.
Yes, because the individual person, you, with your memories, your body, your specific personality, is the red pixel. You appear entirely separate from me, the blue pixel. And in the realm of the known, in the movie, we are separate. But the knowing, the unknowable presence that makes your experience and my experience possible, is the single backlight. The individual is a localized expression of a reality that has no fundamental division at its source.
And this is exactly where we cross into mysticism. Because this concept isn't some new thought experiment invented by internet commentators in 2026.
No, not at all.
This is the core realization at the heart of almost every major wisdom tradition in human history.
Bandra points this out beautifully in his commentary. Across millennia, spanning different cultures, geographies, and languages, mystics have pointed to this exact same direct recognition.
Right.
The ancient Upanishads declare tat famasi, thou art that, meaning the essence of the individual and the essence of the ultimate reality are one.
And Sufi mystics talk about the dissolution of the separate self. Christian mystics talk about complete union with the divine, where the barrier between the soul and God just dissolves entirely.
Buddhism points toward emptiness, revealing that the independent separate self is an illusion.
Course in Miracles talks about it too.
Yes. Different terminology, different cultural framing, but the exact same destination. The seeker and the sought are not separate. The red pixel realizes it is the backlight.
But here is the profound paradox that makes this so frustrating for the intellect.
What's that?
You can never actually see it.
Right.
It's like an eye trying to see itself. The eye is the instrument of vision. It can see the entire world, but it cannot turn around and look directly at itself.
But despite the fact that the eye can't see itself as an object, the fact that seeing is happening is absolutely undeniable. It is completely self-evident.
Right, you can't deny that you're aware.
Exactly. That is the core of the unknowable. It is unknowable as an object in the movie. You can never put it in a test tube. You can never grab hold of it. You can never formulate the perfect sentence to capture it. But it is immediately, intimately present as the very act of knowing.
But there is a massive trap here, which the source material specifically warns against.
Worshipping the finger pointing at the moon.
Yes, worshipping the finger. All these mystical words we're using, awareness, God, consciousness, the backlight, These are just fingers pointing.
Yeah.
If I become obsessed with the finger, if I just memorize all this mystical jargon and walk around calling myself the backlight, I haven't actually experienced the moon.
Right. You've just memorized a new script for the ego.
Exactly. So how do we ground this? Which brings us to our final lens, lens number 6, everyday living. What does direct knowing actually look like mechanically in a normal human life?
And this is arguably the most important phase of this exploration, because a profound metaphysical insight is completely useless if it doesn't transform how you navigate a Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
We have to bring this down from the cosmos to the kitchen table. How does aligning with this knowing change ordinary life?
Because recognizing that I am the screen doesn't mean the movie stops playing.
No, it doesn't.
I still have to pay my mortgage. I still have to deal with infuriating traffic. I still have to navigate conflict with my family. I can't just float through life saying, oh, I am the unified backlight of the universe, so I don't need to do my taxes.
I mean, you can try, but the IRS might have something to say about it.
Right.
Exactly. The goal is not dissociation. Both Chopra and Bandra agree on a vital practical point here. This true nature is not something you acquire through immense effort.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a prize at the end of a 10-year meditation retreat. It is something that is simply recognized in the present moment. And we can apply the mechanics of this recognition to very specific, highly relatable scenarios.
Give me an example.
Let's look at criticism.
Oh, a universal trigger.
Right. You're at work or you're with your partner and someone heavily criticizes something you did.
I feel my blood pressure rising just thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, in the default human state, the known self, the ego, that predictive engine we talked about, perceives that criticism as a literal threat to its survival. The amygdala fires. You feel a flush of heat in your face, your body physically tightens, and the brain immediately starts generating defensive or aggressive thoughts. You fuse completely with the reaction.
You literally become the anger.
Yes. But if you practice recognizing the knowing, the mechanics of that moment completely change.
Okay, how?
You don't prevent the anger from arising. The biology is going to do what the biology does. But you pause and you notice the reaction as an object.
Like looking at the storm.
Yes. You recognize the heat in your face. That is a sensation appearing in the known. You observe the defensive thought formulating in your mind. That is a thought appearing in the known.
Oh, so you create a fraction of a second of space between the stimulus and the response.
Exactly.
And in that space, by observing the neurological storm rather than becoming it, you literally override the amygdala. You regain access to your executive function, giving you the freedom to respond intentionally rather than reacting blindly.
That is the practical power of it.
Wow.
Or consider how we process worry. Human beings spend an inordinate amount of time agonizing over the future.
Tell me about it.
And the future is the ultimate unknown. We imagine worst-case scenarios, financial ruin, health crises, but the anxiety you feel about that imagined future is happening right now.
Right, the future isn't here, but the physical anxiety is.
It is a physical and psychological object in the present moment.
So instead of trying to solve an imagined problem in a future that doesn't exist yet, you pull your attention back to the present knowing. You notice the breathing, you notice the physical environment, you notice the anxiety itself as just another piece of weather passing through the sky.
Precisely. And what about grief?
That's a tough one.
This is often the heaviest emotional weather a human will ever experience. Some people worry that if we identify as the screen or the sky, we will become cold and detached when we lose someone we love.
Right, like if I'm just the unified backlight, why should I care if another pixel burns out?
But Bandra clarifies that accessing the unknowable does not ask you to bypass or deny human grief. It actually allows you to feel it more deeply.
Really? How?
When you lose someone, the sorrow is immense. The tears appear, the gut-wrenching memories appear, the physical ache in the chest appears.
Yeah.
But instead of resisting the pain, instead of the ego fighting and saying, this shouldn't be happening, I can't survive this, all of that immense suffering is allowed to exist. It is held within a spacious presence that doesn't resist it.
You aren't fighting the reality of the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it doesn't make us passive, cold robots.
But not at all.
We still grieve. We still set firm boundaries with toxic people. We still solve complex problems at work. And we still love deeply.
Yes.
But we act from a place of fundamental clarity rather than a place of existential fear. The known, our memories, our logic, our skills, becomes a brilliant, useful tool instead of a prison we're locked inside.
Beautifully said. The unknown future becomes a space of expansive possibility rather than a constant source of terror. And the unknowable stops being this abstract spiritual jargon and becomes the living, silent foundation of your daily life.
Yeah.
Awakening, as these commentators frame it, isn't about leaving the world, it's about fully meeting the world without losing yourself in its passing appearances.
Which actually brings me to a practical inquiry exercise that the source material suggests for the listener. And I think this is a brilliant way to wrap this up.
Oh, I love this exercise.
It's a way to mechanically test this for yourself right now, without needing any belief system whatsoever.
Okay, lay it out.
It asks a series of questions. First, can you find an age in the knowing? Like, think about the pure silent awareness that is hearing my voice at this exact second. The awareness itself, does it feel 20 years old or 50 or 80?
If you really look closely at the awareness itself, you can't find an age. The body has an age. The memories span a certain number of years. But the presence that is aware of the body and aware of the memories is completely ageless.
Okay, what about this? Can you find a nationality in that pure awareness? Can you find a religious identity? Can you find a physical boundary?
You can't.
No.
Knowing is present when the mind completely understands a complex equation, and knowing is equally present when the mind is totally confused and lost.
It's just there.
It illuminates certainty and uncertainty equally. Beneath all of the dividing labels of the known, the awareness itself is entirely neutral and entirely shared.
It's just the blank screen.
Just the screen.
And the screen does not care if a hilarious comedy or a devastating tragedy is currently playing. It holds both perfectly. It allows both to exist without being changed by either.
So if we synthesize all the mechanics we've explored today, the philosophy, the psychology, the science, and the lived experience, what is the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive into Bandra and Chopra's commentary?
I think the ultimate takeaway is a complete reorientation of who and what you are. We started by defining the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. We explored how trying to find awareness by thinking about it leads to an infinite regress, because the eye cannot see itself.
Right.
We looked at how our brains build a fragile psychological ego out of the known, and how terrified that ego is of the unknown.
We examined why science, despite its absolute brilliance in mapping the brain, hits a hard wall when trying to measure subjective experience.
And we looked at the metaphysical reality that we are all individual pixels illuminated by the exact same backlight.
We realized that we are not just our memories, our traumas, or our passing fears.
No.
We are not just the character in the movie. We are the screen. We are the precise location where the universe actually becomes an experience.
Exactly. And practically, the next time you feel completely overwhelmed by the known, whether it's an overload of information, a brutal criticism that triggers your ego, or a painful wave of anxiety, you can mechanically step back.
You have that choice now.
You can shift from being the character battered by the storm to being the sky that holds it. You can face the unknown future with curiosity instead of panic. And you can find deep, enduring peace in the silent presence of the unknowable.
You can sit in the theater, watch the movie of your life, feel the emotions fully, but never forget the screen.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today.
Okay.
It builds directly on that closing inquiry exercise, where you practice noticing a sound or a sensation appearing and then disappearing.
Right.
I want you to really mull this over, mechanically, in your own direct experience. If every single thought, every emotional wave, and every physical sensation is just an object that appears and then disappears within the space of your awareness, what happens to you in the space between two thoughts? When the predictive machinery of the known mind goes completely, utterly quiet, even just for a microsecond, what is actually left to experience the silence?
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nevaeh, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nevaeh's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for, until she met Joe Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world have been touched and inspired by finding Nevaeh.
Your journey to inner peace begins now. Get your copy of Finding Nevaeh, available on Amazon and at findingnevaeh.org, or listen to the audiobook on Audible, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms.